Hello there, and welcome to today's mini training all about leading in times of crisis and uncertainty. So if you're a corporate leader, I know you probably know this all too well, so hopefully this is going to be really helpful to you. I've been getting a lot of feedback on this topic, and a lot of my clients need some additional support when it comes to how to navigate this, right? Because there's so much going on in our world right now, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns, and a lot of crisis, things that are coming up out of the blue that leaders in the corporate space just need to be prepared for and know how to handle those kinds of situations. So that's what I'm talking about today. And if you don't know who I am or you've never watched one of my videos, well, let me introduce myself for a moment. My name is Sharissa Deppen, and my focus is in the area of corporate leadership and executive coaching. So I work with compassionate servant leaders who really just want to make a difference in the world, but not at the expense of their own personal life. And they want to have great work-life balance, feel really on purpose and driven by what they're doing, and also just feeling like they have an incredible impact. So if that is you, then you are in the right place. So without any further ado, there's a couple of points that I'm going to be covering for today. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is managing crisis communication and also decision making. So there's that piece of it. There's also navigating ethical dilemmas and decision making in difficult situations and difficult times. And then the last thing we'll talk about is building resilience and adaptability in terms of how you're managing yourself and navigating that, and also how you're supporting your team in that area. So I'm going to touch on a couple of things, but I have a more in-depth training. It's completely free, and I'm going to share a link to that and tell you a little bit more about it at the end. But first, I want to share a little bit on these three topics in particular. So the first one, talking about managing crisis communication and decision making, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. One is you need to make sure that you are checking in with yourself, right? Your own mental well-being. You're very aware of what could trigger you, what causes you stress, and things like that. And part of that is also how you're interpreting what's going on in a given situation. So you want to make sure that again, what triggers you, what causes you stress, and also how to regulate your emotion really well. So that emotional regulation is going to be so important. And also just know your audience, right? So when it comes to managing communication, you need to know who you're speaking with. You need to understand what's going to really resonate with them. How can you help them, stay really calm? How can you help them focus on what's the most important thing? All of those kinds of things. So first is you have to take care of yourself, making sure that you're focusing on all the right things. So you're taking care of your own well-being, your own, mentally, how are you, and how do you show up in those situations when maybe you get bad news or you have to handle a crisis and it was obviously not planned for. So making sure that you can stay, grounded, stay really focused, and have that focus and the energy and everything you need to be able to think clearly and handle that situation in the best way. So the next thing I want to talk about is navigating ethical dilemmas and decision making when it comes to these difficult times that you can find yourself in. So the first thing is, from an ethical standpoint, it's going to be really important to get clear on what does that mean? Where is that line, right? Ethically. So my version of what is ethical could be different than your version, could be different than your company's version, could be different than the people that you're working with, their version of what ethical means. So you need to make sure there's clear alignment around where is that line? Why do we have that line in the first place in terms of what's important in your environment and with the people you work with? And then what does it mean clearly to cross that line so that people are very clear about where that boundary is and what it looks like if you cross that, and what is acceptable, not acceptable, and then how that's going to be addressed. So making sure there's alignment across the board, incredibly important when it comes to any kind of ethical challenge or dilemma. But if you do find yourself in the situation where you have to address something that's already kind of gone off the rails a little bit, then one thing is to make sure that you understand who you're addressing. You understand where they're coming from, the values that are coming into play here, what is important, what's not, and how to navigate that in a way that that is going to be best in the situation overall. And also, what is the expectation from your company standpoint, from your leader's standpoint, right? Where do they want you? How do they want you to handle that situation in a way that aligns with getting the support that you need at different levels in the organization as well? So that's just that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how to manage that. And then the third thing is building resilience and adaptability in yourself and others. So again, this comes back to, like, when it comes to resilience, when it comes to adaptability, you need to know yourself really well. You need to know what I call, with my clients, I call it their leadership zone of genius. You need to know your strengths. You need to know how are you wired to be able to manage and navigate this in the best possible way. And we go through this whole process to helping you to be the most resilient leader that you can be, so that in those times of crisis, you can really just focus on what's most important. You can keep your stress levels down, and you have the space to creating that space and capacity to be able to be the very best version of yourself, because that's what people are going to look to you for, right? Especially in times of crisis and when things don't go so well. So that's the first thing. You need to know yourself really well. And also you need to understand your team well. So whoever you're supporting, whoever you want to help to maybe be more resilient and help them be more adaptable and things like that, you need to know what level of support do they need, what is their view of resilience, right? What does it mean to them? What helps them in those situations, and what are their strengths that help them to stay resilient and adaptable as they go through? And also it's worthwhile to check in and see, can they learn from each other, right? Because we can pick up so many things from working with other people. There's going to be some people that have strengths in certain areas and then others who have strengths in other areas. And so working together to learn from each other is going to be so helpful when it comes to adaptability, resilience, and all of that. Because the better we know each other, the easier it is to figure out how to work really, really well as a team, right? How to work well together. So those are the three things that I wanted to touch on today. One is managing crisis communication. And then I touched on the decision-making aspect of that and navigating ethical dilemmas and decisions that go into that. And then also building resilience and adaptability for yourself and your team. So the other thing I want to mention before we go is I have a training that goes into much more details in all of these areas. I'm going to help you kind of put together these pieces and paint a clearer picture of like how you can actually go about doing some of these things. So if that is interesting to you and you want to know how to lead well in times of uncertainty and rapid change, I have a 3-part, like a mini series, so bite-sized little trainings that you can go through and get all of this information completely for free. And actually that is the title of that training series. It's how to lead well in times of uncertainty and rapid change. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link below, and you can sign up at any time. You can watch it, on your own time whenever you have a free moment. Again, they're bite-sized pieces, so easy to, to just check in and listen to the videos when you have a couple of minutes. So I hope that's helpful to you. I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and post in the comments below, or reach out to me and send me a private message, and I'm happy to hear from you and see if there's anything I can do to help. So thank you so much again, and I will chat with you again soon. Bye for now.